I mean,
Mhm.
ups and downs. Just because I got sober doesn't mean life has been perfect and beautiful and rainbows and all the things. It's still life.
Guiding you through the night when the stars just refuse to shine. And I'll be your shelter, that safe place to hide, your sanctuary.
Mm. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today's guest, Chelsea, has graciously come on to share her knowledge and experience with addiction. So I'm going to welcome Chelsea and let her take it away. Hi, Chelsea. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Jasmine. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. I definitely have some experience with addiction. I personally recovered from substance use disorder. I have 12 years sober,
Yay,
and
good job. That's better than me.
thanks. Thank you. It's definitely been a journey, right?
Mhm.
Ups and downs. Just because I got sober doesn't mean life has been perfect and beautiful and rainbows and all the things. It's still life.
I just said
So,
that earlier to somebody. I'm like, somebody commented on something, and I'm like, just because I'm sober doesn't mean my life's all rainbows and sunshine, but I can manage it better.
right, exactly. Like I have the tools today, which
hmm
I didn't have before. And long before I ever used substances to solve my problems, because that became the solution, I was unequipped to deal with life. I,
hmm
as a child, did not know how to deal with anything. My emotions, I wasn't taught what to do with them. These feelings of anxiety and fear and dread and this feeling less than was really consuming for me as a
Same here.
child. Really? As a
I was
child?
bullied I was bullied, so as a child I was consumed by never feeling good enough and being afraid of people and like very anxious all the time. And they didn't know how to cope with that, right? Which led to addiction, obviously.
Exactly. That's my story too. And when I talk to people who've been through the darkness of addiction, we all can relate on some level. Like our
hmm
stories might be different. Like we come from different places and have different backgrounds and upbringings and education, careers, whatever, you name it, it's going to be different. Like all that stuff out here in the material world is different. But internally, I find we're all the same. That pain is the same. How we deal with life is the same. And for me, I didn't know how to deal with life. And I found all this stuff out here in the material world to try to fix me long before I ever like took a sip of alcohol or anything. And I would find these ways to try to get people to notice me and like me and fit in with my peers from a really young age. I remember in the first grade, I would actually check out more advanced books from the library because I really didn't know how to read, but I didn't want people to know I didn't know how to read.
I tried too. I remember checking out Oliver Twist and
Oh, yeah.
trying to make it like I could read that. And I still remember like because the wording is in old time wording, it was so confusing. And I remember just looking at it and being like, I'm just gonna sit here and pretend I'm reading this. I
Right.
was the exact
Exactly.
same way.
Oh my gosh. And it was just, that just continued as I got older. And in the third grade, so the school I went to, when we failed a test, we had to sit out in the hallway by ourselves and retake the test. And it only took one time for me to realize that I did not want to experience that level of humiliation ever again.
Yeah,
I was
that's pretty kind of like that's really singling you out. That's like punishment.
right. And I was just I didn't know what to do with myself. I mean, I'm out there by myself retaking my times table test, and I'm 7 years old at this point in time, and all I knew was I have to figure out a way around this because this can't happen again. And I found a way to cheat so that I would be able to pass my tests and not have to sit out in the hallway. So that those patterns of lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating from childhood, I don't know where I learned these things because if I'm being honest, I grew up in a very loving home. I had parents that treated me great. They instilled morals and values in me. I don't know how I came up with this, but I was very crafty and very innovative. And I just knew that I had to find a way to feel better about myself. And that was kind of a recurring theme, this
hmm
desperation to feel better.
What I ended up doing was I was picked on, so I started picking on people that were low, like in my mind, lower than me, so that I would feel better about myself and gain other people's, like, they would make them like me. So I would bully people even though I was bullied because it made me feel superior. And I've actually gone back in my adulthood and apologized to these people because I felt because in high school I got bullied. It was my karma that came back and bit me hard. I mean, I got it hard in high school and I didn't even cry because I knew that I deserved it. And it made me realize what I had done to those other people. So I went back and apologized to them because I realized how it felt to be bullied to that degree. Do you know what I mean? But that was my way of doing things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was my way of feeling better, or, you know, but I was not raised that way either. Like, my mother was strict, but other than that, it was a pretty normal home. And my mom would always tell me never to be like bullied. Like, she always would be stress empathy and non-judgmentalness and all that kind of stuff. But the reason I was bullied was because she put tea tree oil in my hair so that I wouldn't get lice, and I smelled like tea tree oil. So kids would make fun of me because I smelled. And so I constantly would get picked on because I smelled. So then I would turn it around and pick on other kids for other reasons. And then it ended up that I got the karma back by getting bullied in high school. But that is what I accepted it. I still accept it to this day. But like you said, it's just we don't know how to cope when we're in those situations. So we just do what we think is going to help us because we don't know any better. We're just kids.
Absolutely. And I was bullied as well, and that was a whole nightmare of middle school specifically. And I did go through a phase where I was the bully because I didn't know what else to do.
That's
I went
same
to
to me.
the same school with the same kids for 9 years. It's not like I could just wake up one day and be popular. Like I had to find a
hmm
way to make a new name for myself somehow. And finally, when I went to high school, that was my opportunity. And I'm glad that bullying period lasted a very short amount of time for me when I was the bully, and I was able to move on, go to high school, and try to make a new name for myself. But I ran into the same problems. I was constantly, because I was always like, ooh, that girl growing up, I wanted to be that girl. So it was excelling in my classes, being the smartest person, making the best grades, playing multiple sports, getting scholarships, being elected to the leadership council, and all these these things to make me feel better about myself. And I would use, again, all this external stuff to try to make me feel better about myself. And it's like, as soon as I achieved something, I got this reward, this sense of accomplishment and feeling good about myself. But it was short lived. And then I was back to this not feeling good enough until I found the world of mind and mood altering substances, and I found the answer to all my problems. And then it didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter, right? I was either, you thought I was cool because I was doing all the things you were doing, or because I was under the influence and feeling good, I didn't give a crap about what you thought of me. And so that was cool too.
See, mine was I was really bullied in high school by the girls, like really, really badly. I won't get into it because it's like pretty bad. But I ended up having to switch schools because it was so extreme. But that led me to hang out with the boys, and the boys introduced me to like the harder drugs. And because if you've ever done cocaine or ecstasy, you talk a lot. And so we all thought we were so close with each other and knew each other so well because we would just sit there and do drugs and talk and talk and talk. And that was how I would feel better. But then it was short lived because it steals your dopamine. So the next day, I would wake up anxious, think that maybe I said the wrong thing, all that kind of stuff would just fly back in. Plus, my brain's not developed and I'm low on dopamine and all that other good stuff. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, it definitely stunted my development more and more as life went on. And it was all in the name of trying to, like you said, make a name for myself and be that somebody, right? Because I was always the kid that got picked on because I'm really small. It was an easy target, right? And it went on since kindergarten to grade 12. I had to go to counseling in high school because it was so bad that I was like agoraphobic almost, right? And I wouldn't go to school sometimes, or if I did, I would hide in this corner in the library, or I'd always find a place that I could hide from some people and stuff, right? And it was just then I found the boys that introduced me to the stuff I shouldn't do. And like I said, it was like a cycle of, oh, I think I'm so close to these people. And then I'm worrying about what I said. And then that's making me not like myself on top of the bullying. And oh man, like, you
It's a
think you're
cycle, isn't it?
yeah, it just goes like this. And I remember even like planning, my friend and I would sit there and plan out with our allowances what we were going to buy to party with on the weekend in class and who we were going to hang out with and all this stuff. And it was all centered around drugs and alcohol, and it's like that was what made you cool was by doing that stuff. So we wanted to be cool instead of these girls that got picked on constantly. So we would do that stuff. And I look back to being a little girl, and I, as a little girl, did not want to be that person. I did not want to do drugs. I wanted to be like the good girl, but I definitely didn't end up that way, which also fed into that negativity, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I told my first boyfriend that I ever had, I said, if you ever even talk about drinking or doing drugs, I will break up with you in a heartbeat. And that's how I was too. And those morals and those values were instilled in me. And I wanted to do good. I wanted to make my parents proud of me. And I wanted to make my
Hmm.
little sisters proud of me and be a good role model for them. And that just led me to leading a really, really, really good double life. And I got
I
really
can
good at
imagine.
playing the good girl, when I needed to play the good girl, and kept everything. I was a mastermind at keeping everything hidden as as well as I possibly could. And that just led me to rationalizing my behavior because I'm like, well, I still, go to church with my family and I still get good grades and
Mhm.
I don't have a problem. And it
See,
was
I
just
got
a reason to
caught.
keep doing it.
I wanted to portray to my family that I was a good girl, but because I was getting bullied, I was hiding in the library. I got caught forging a report card to my parents by a teacher on the computer because I wanted my parents to think that I was doing really well. So I was trying to cut like out the numbers, glue them on top of it, and then photocopy it to make it look like a real report card, right? And I got caught doing that, and all in the name of wanting to portray that. I also in biology, my teacher left his computer open where we could come check our grades. And I changed my grade on that computer and didn't get caught, all in the name of just trying to pretend that I was good and make my parents proud. When really I just wasn't good at living the double life. I just wasn't good at it. That's what I'll say.
Well, I don't know if it worked to my benefit or not. I still ended up having to get sober at some point. So, um, but yeah, I just wonder what would have happened if I was taught growing up that the thoughts and feelings I had were completely normal. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. Your thoughts are valid. Your feelings are valid. And here's what to do with them. I was taught that, like, for me, anger was this thing that was not allowed to be expressed as a child. And
Yeah.
if you stand up for yourself, or if you talk back, or if you express your feelings in a way that comes across as being angry, that was going to put me in my room and it was going to, shut me up. And I would go to my room and then I would, I was just taught that it's not safe to express those things. I'm going to end up in my room by myself anyway, with my feelings by myself anyway. I might as well
Mhm.
just keep it all to myself. And then what did that do? It just led me to seeking some kind of escape to be able to deal with all these things that I didn't know were normal. I thought they were
It's
bad,
so
like
true.
something was wrong with me.
It's so true. Like I remember I got beat up in high school and I came home and my mom's like, "Well, you deserve it because you were being mouthy." Because like you said, I was like I when you said sitting in your room, I remember spending hours sitting in my room crying my eyes out alone because my mom was the same way. My dad worked a lot, so he wasn't home very often, but my mom, she didn't she was the same way. So I would be in my room crying my eyes out for hours because it she'd be like, "You're only allowed to cry if you're hurt or if you're sick." And that's what she would always say. And if you got angry, it was same thing. You go to your room and calm down. And it was never ever no coping mechanisms were ever taught to me. And so same thing, right? It just in a different way. I feel like
Yeah,
that's how we all relate to each other because we do all have similar backgrounds and that's why we ended up the way we did, right? But I just when you said that it just brings flashbacks. Like like so crazy sometimes when you talk to somebody and their story aligns with yours so much. You just flash back into those memories and you're like, "Oh, I wish I knew what I knew now," right? And could go tell myself that. But I didn't know. I
exactly.
just hated myself, like hated myself. And I worried about every little thing I said to anybody or did. And if they didn't like me or if like I let a friend of mine basically bully the hell out of me just so that I had a friend. Like it was, yeah, like just I wanted to be liked by somebody at least, you know? It was, and like I said, I just hated myself because I was never taught that it's okay to have feelings. And but like I said, I was put into counseling in grade 11, so that that was the best 2 years of my life, earlier life, was when I was in the new school taking counseling, learning those coping mechanisms and stuff like that. And that's when I wasn't really doing bad things because I was actually seeking help and learning coping mechanisms. And my addiction came back later on after high school, right? Because of other incidences, right? But yeah, the being able to go to the counseling really, really saved me in that situation. Because otherwise I
Yeah,
didn't know how to cope.
right. And so when with my bullying, it was I never told my parents anything. There was an incident that happened at a certain point in time that I basically had made the decision myself that I couldn't trust anyone in authority. And I could not share anything about anything with anyone in authority, whether it was my teacher or my parents or the principal or anyone. And I had just, again, would just keep everything to myself. And I didn't want my parents to make a big deal out of what was happening to me. I already felt so alone and I felt like I couldn't really like trust them and I didn't know what they could do for me anyway. So I just didn't tell them, but other kids would go home crying to their parents and they would call my mom and just ask her what happened to Chelsea because Madison came home crying because she was so upset at whatever happened in front of the entire class.
Mm,
And my mom would ask me and I would just say, nothing, it's fine. I'm fine. Because I mean, what else was gonna happen? I just did not feel, and I was sent to the school counselor in the third grade after this incident happened that I felt like I couldn't trust authority. And that was part of it. I'm like, the counselor didn't do anything but like make me feel worse. So there's nobody. It's just me, myself, and and we're gonna have to figure out this life together. Because there's no one really that can help me. And
that's
unfortunately,
hard. That's so hard.
yeah. It was awful. And so what happened for me is like I also had all these health conditions too, which made me feel very alone and isolated. And I think that also didn't help my substance use because I was self-medicating for everything under the sun. My health conditions, my feelings, my thoughts, my experiences, everything that was going on in my life. And that was the only solution I had. And of course, they didn't have anyone to like talk to about these things. So I didn't know
Mhm.
that there was another way, and they didn't teach me in school. And it got to the point where it was just the substances. Like that was my solution for everything in life, everything. And I ran with that as long as I could until I couldn't anymore. And I just got to that place where I was just existing. There was no point being on this earth anymore for me. And I mean, when I would look in the mirror, there was nothing. If I even looked in the mirror. I mean, I tried
That's
not
what I was
to,
thinking.
but
I didn't even like looking in the mirror at one
yeah.
point. I wouldn't even look at myself. I didn't want to.
No, it was awful. It was terrible. And when I did actually look in the mirror, there was no connection. There was just complete emptiness. I had no idea who I was looking at. I did know whatever I did see, I wanted nothing to do with, and I hated her. And I also hated everybody else. I
Oh
was,
yeah.
I mean, and don't even get me started about happy people. I mean, happy people piss me off more than anything in this world.
Oh yeah. That was like a trigger for me, was the happy people that seem to have it all together. That would trigger me when I was in addiction real bad.
Yeah, it was a miserable existence. And that's what it was. I was just existing. And, of course, a series of events led to me getting sober. And it changed everything for me. It changed everything. And then once I finally graduated college, my first job actually was in a pain management clinic. I was a couple years sober at this point. And so not only did I experience addiction myself and I was in the recovery community, then I was working and seeing these people who had a different experience than me that were addicted because they were being prescribed medication by the physicians. And that just opened up a whole new world for me. And it was really, really heartbreaking to see that side.
Well, it
And
happened to my husband. He got prescribed Percocets because they won't give he has a bad knee. He's too young to get a knee replacement, so they gave him Percocets, right? And he became addicted to Percocets and ended up having subsequently 2 heart attacks because of the Percocets, and he was only 30 years old at the time. So it wasn't like he was, hurting and using the Percocets to cope or anything like that. He was just trying to manage his pain, and it the doctor prescribed it to him, so he thought, I'm okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But then they get addicted and doctors don't taper them off properly, and then they're out seeking it. It's really expensive too. I've watched him go through it. And it like even now, like his sister is still addicted to them because they were both addicted because they both were prescribed by the same doctor. And when she still takes them and she talks about them, he can't talk to her because it triggers him and makes him want to use it so badly, right? And I feel so bad for him because it's like, and I talk to a lot of other people that are the same way. It's the doctor created their addiction. That's why when you see homeless people on the street, I this is kind of my whole thing with this podcast is they're a person and you don't know their story. They could be homeless and on the streets because of a doctor, not because of their choice, but because of somebody else's choice. So it's not fair to judge them without knowing anything about them.
absolutely, I'm getting cold chills thinking about that. Yeah, the clinic I work for ended up getting shut down. We were raided by the FBI and the DEA and all the things. But they stayed open for a while, and I was there. I was the first person people saw when they came into the office. And
Oh,
I was met with the people. I could cry thinking about this.
how sick they were. Oh,
Because they were completely cut off and they had no option. They had no option. And it was completely heartbreaking. And as much as I wanted to be able to help those people, I couldn't. There was nothing I could do. And I ended up having to leave that job, obviously. And then
mhm.
later on, I ended up working in recovery and I worked as a counselor and a case manager, helping people on this side of recovery. And it's the same story for everyone. Everyone, it doesn't matter how they got here, it was because they had pain, whether it was physical or emotional, and substances were the solution to their problems. And without that, without the substance, we have to have a new solution. And so that's what I've spent the last 12 years of my life doing in service work and professionally, is helping people find a solution to that. And now I actually work with people in chronic pain and help them solve their pain without medication. And it's just
That's
a huge thing.
amazing. That's amazing. I commend you on all of your work because it's needed and it's just beautiful that like you're a beautiful soul for doing something like that because there's so many people who need that. Like they need 10 of you just to do my city because of that exact thing. And it's all opiates because of pain. And people don't know how to live without medicating the pain, right? And because I go
Right.
to a methadone clinic, right? So I see it all the time, and I see the people that come in, and it's really sad because I live in a small community. So the people I see are people I know. I mean, I don't know them well, but they're people I went to school with or played sports with or whatever, right? And I see them come in looking just like death, feeling like death, and it's just sad. And if they like, if instead of doctors, instead of just writing out prescriptions, did like did recommend people like you to help, like, do you know what I mean? Like to teach them how to live with the pain and manage it without medications, there would be so much less homelessness, less addiction, just less of everything, right? Like they need like 10 of you, I
Absolutely.
swear.
Well, I'm on a mission. I'm trying to spread hope and healing to as many people because what we're also not taught is how the brain works and the role that the brain plays in addiction and pain. And it's very similar in these pathways that are created. And when they're strengthened over and over and over, it's hard to break that cycle, whether it is for physical pain, emotional pain, whatever it is. And so, what I teach people to do is how to reprogram their brain to create new pathways so they can actually eliminate pain altogether. And it's amazing. And I love it. And I'm trying to help my community as best as I can. I wish I could just come there and heal all your people too, but it's amazing work. I love it, and I just love connecting with other people who are passionate about spreading hope because if I mean, I don't know you, right? But I know you. The pain is
Yeah.
the same. The darkness, the madness, whatever you want to call it, it's the same. You've been there, I've been there in completely different places, but we've been there and there's hope. There's so much hope.
And I find that usually, once you've been sober for a little while, most of us want to help other people because we just almost feel called to it because we felt that hope. We've seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and we just want to bring that to them because we see them suffering and we know that you can get better. And I like my best friend, he's been through addiction with me. He was the one that got me to go to AA the first time. When I started going to the methadone clinic, I randomly ran into him there. He took my mother in when she almost was homeless. Like, I don't know, we're very close, right? But he speaks like he wants to help people too, but his anxiety holds him back. And I told him, like, you know what, I'll help you help other people by showing you how to kind of, he's just afraid to talk to people. Do you know what I mean? He gets a bit of anxiety. So I'm like, I'll work with you on that because I think that if he had like a program with just men, because men have a hard time opening up in front of women. I said to him, I said to the sim today, I'm like, you should start a virtual men's group where you guys can openly talk about things and not have that fear of like women hearing you and holding yourself back and just being raw and real because it will help so much. He's like, oh, I'm really anxious about it. I'm like, I'm coming over on the weekend and we're talking about how you're going to do this.
Yeah, well, I was terrified of people. I had such anxiety. I didn't know how to get out of that, but I actually started volunteering with an organization in my community. It's called Young People in Recovery. And I just started sitting at the table whenever we would go to these different awareness events or rallies or whatever in the recovery world. And I would just sit there and I learned how to be with that anxiety and walk through that anxiety and start learning how to talk to people because I was so isolated for so long and was so insecure about myself. And I didn't have that solution anymore that that substance that helped me be confident
Yeah.
and feel good about myself. And so I had to learn that. And it's such a normal thing. Like if you're listening and you're new to this world of, recovery, just I really want to share that what you're thinking and feeling is normal. Chances are I've felt the exact same way. I've thought the same exact things, and you're not alone.
I love that because you aren't alone. And like I said, how like our stories are not the same, but they align so much, right? And even with my husband and his story by being prescribed it, it's still he's been in the pit. He's gone through the dark days too because of it as well. And I think that the connection is what is needed because people feel so alone. So I know that from experience, and so do you. And like you do feel alone. I'm actually diagnosed with agoraphobia, right? So like I had a way to teach myself was I started working in the hospitality industry, right? So I was a server or a bartender or a manager, and I would always have to talk to people. And a lot of the time, especially as a manager, there's angry people, right? And so it pushed me to have to talk to people even in hard situations. And that's how I got over my anxiety of talking to people. I haven't like worked necessarily in the industry myself. I've done a lot of volunteer work and stuff like that. I've gone to school for it and stuff, but in the midst of going to school for it, I had a few relapses. So I never ended up fully finishing that, right? So that's why I don't work in the industry right now. I'm in school trying to finish that off now, but it's been almost 5 years and I have two kids, so it took me a little while to go back to school. Now that they're in school, I can, right? But I just want to help people. That's all I want to do. And I like my ex that I have a daughter with, he intravenously uses fentanyl and has for over 8 years now. And he looks like a zombie. And I had to grieve, and so is his mom and my daughter. We've had to grieve the loss of who he was because he isn't coming back, right? And it's that too is sad is when somebody just can't find their way because he just has such victim mentality that he's left detox every time we've taken him. So it's just we've had to grieve the loss of he was such a fun person and now he's just a zombie. And I hope one day he does find what he's looking for because he was such a good person at one point. But again, I think he feels alone, like we all do, like he feels like he's alone in his own illness, like I don't think he thinks that he can do it and he can't, but I just don't think, I think when you have to get to that point of being sick and tired or being sick and tired, and that is I know it's such an overused saying, but it is the truth.
It is the truth. And I've also heard it said until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, we're not ready to do something different. We have to get to that point where we're ready to face the fear. Like, I mean, I had to do that. I don't know anyone who's like, yay, let's get sober. I'm excited. Um, that's just
Oh,
not the
no.
reality for most of us, or at least everyone I've met. Maybe that's you, and that's great for you. But that wasn't me. And we just have to be willing to face that fear. Like you said, we have to get to that place. But once you do get to that place, there's so many of us out here rooting you on, supporting you. They say the opposite of addiction is connection. And for me, I had to have connection with other people on this journey, or I wouldn't be where I am today.
Well, you've done such like good work too. Like, I love that, like, you wholeheartedly put your whole self into helping people in every way that you possibly can. Like, I love it. It's just such a beautiful thing, and it probably touches and helps so many people. That, like, how do people work with you? Just for if anybody listening wanted to, how do people work with you? Do you do it in a, do you have like an office, or do you
Okay.
do it virtually?
Yeah, I meet everyone virtually. I've actually had a client from Canada, and we have virtual sessions. If you want more information about what I do, check out transcendingpain.com. I'm also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook at Transcending Pain. And yeah, reach out to me. I'd love to connect and chat with you.
Well, I'm gonna put that in the show notes, and I just because I think like that's why I wanted to know if you take on clients or if you have like an actual office where you live, right? Because I think people listening would want to learn how to live without having to take medication for pain. Like right now, I'm trying to learn how to live without taking mental health medication, and I'm tapering myself off of it. My doctor's not tapering me off of it. I'm doing it myself because I don't want to be on it anymore. Do you know what I mean? I don't like being, it makes me tired. I don't want to be tired all the time, right? So I'm slowly learning how to live life without the medication for the anxiety, and it's actually, I feel better, like, to be honest. And that's what I think would help people with you with living without the pain medicine, because it's the same thing. You go a day without it after you get through the part, if you taper properly, after you get through the part of not, so if not going through withdrawals because you tapered off. Once you live without it, you realize that you can do it and you actually feel better. And that's why I wanted to know if you take clients on, because I feel like other people, once they have that feeling, they're going to be like an aha moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I myself healed from over 24 chronic physical and mental health conditions. And, obviously we didn't get into that, but that's what, and I had a lifetime of chronic pain and mental health issues, which I, mentioned self-medicating because of all of that. And it doesn't matter where you are on that journey, if you're on medication or not. I take people on as clients who are still prescribed opiates and controlled substances, whether that is for physical or mental health reasons. I just meet everyone where they're at, and we'll talk and see if this approach is something that can benefit you. Obviously, I am not a doctor, so I would never tell you stop following your doctor's advice, but I'll talk with you and we'll see how I can help you.
I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I am putting that in the show notes. Transcendingpain.com, right?
Yes. Thank you, Jasmine,
Perfect.
so much.
Thank you so much for meeting with me, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And thank you so much for sharing what you do, because I think that um people will benefit from it. So thank you for all of it. I
Thank
appreciate it so
you.
much. You have a great day. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing today. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.